For this project, Train of Cars, we are the manager of a train depot. One of our tasks is to efficiently order the train cars so that it is easy to attach and then detach them. We'll be using a kind of doubly linked list for this. In the assignment, we will implement train car program, and it reads the details from a file that we are given called car.txt and stores them in our linked list data structure. So the cars.txt is going to look something like this, where we have all of these cars. We have these cars, the stop number, and then what it's carrying. And we'll give and we have more information on that over here. See after me, tell me to mess up. The cars and the trains are linked, and then we have an example here, and then we have what our menu will look like. So what you can do is, just looking at this, code a menu for this. So we'll go back to our IDE, and we're going to call this class train helper, or we can call it train menu. Either one works. We'll click public static void, and then we are going to click finish. So we have our train helper, and we also have this in our actual file right here. So now looking inside of here, well, all we want to do is print out a menu. So we are going to have a bunch of system.out.println statements. And so these are going to be all the statements. We are just going to print this entire menu, and we are going to do this every single time that our menu is called. And now also, what would be good is if we were to bring this file and this file into our project. On a separate screen, I have the car.txt and the update.txt file popped up, and the update.txt file is just going to update our train cars, so we'll have to implement that as well, but we are going to need that in our program. And again, they're both going to look like this. So we're bringing both of these files in. So in Eclipse, we could just take this file from our file location, and then we're going to put it inside of the main folder. We'll just click copy to files, and then we're going to do the same thing with the car.txt. Bring it in here, put it in the main folder, and then click copy to files. And so we will have both of these inside of here. Now we can go back to the instructions, and we need to code a car.java class, and this is used to create the cars. So we're also given a shell, which is pretty nice. So we are going to make something that looks like this. And in fact, we can copy this and then go back to our code. In our main package, we are going to make a new class, and then we're just going to call it car. And then we will click this in case we need it, and then finish. Actually, we won't need a public static void main. And in fact, we shouldn't have a public static void main in here either. And that's because this is just a class, or the class here is just a class, and this method inside of it is just a method that's going to be called, and it's not going to be our main method. We will have a main class. So this should be public static void and then menu, because we will be calling it menu, and we won't have any parameters inside of here, and we are still returning void. So this is the actual train helper class done. Now moving on to the car, we can paste our skeleton inside of here. So we have class car, and we have all of these things. Sometimes when you copy into Eclipse, there are some like spacing errors. So you are going to have to delete those spaces and then reformat everything. And so this is what our car class is going to look like. We have public string factory, and this is going to be the first kind of head for our linked list. We then have the int stop, so it's also going to store stop. We also have string material, which is going to store the material. And then we have car next, which is going to point to the next car. So we have this public car, and our public car is going to be the default constructor. So inside of our default constructor, we're just going to be initializing everything, and we're going to be initializing it to null because we don't actually want to set anything in here. Our actual files, the car.txt or update.txt, will do this for us. So we'll have this, and then we will pass in null. We'll have 0, null, and null. And what this is saying is, well, we have 4 variables up here, and it's going to call all of those variables. It's going to set factory to null, int to 0, null, and null. And we can do this by using parentheses and this on the outside to do this for all of them, instead of doing like this dot factory is equal to this, and the same thing that would take up 4 lines where this only takes up 1. Now we have this next line, public car, and we have this information inside of here. Now to do this, we're basically just going to do the same. And the commentation for this is that it's a regular constructor and it sets the next thing to null. We have parameters in here. We have fact, that holds the factory name, s, which holds the stop number of our car, and then m, which holds the material our car is carrying. We're going to do the same thing where we have this, and inside of here we are going to have fact, we are going to have s, we are going to have m, and then null. Previously, I've always done like factory dot this is equal to fact, and then stop dot this is equal to stop. And it's important to use the this because it will be using these up here, and if we had the same name it wouldn't be confusing them. And this is mostly if we have the same name, but it's also easy to assign them like this. And then we are also going to do the same thing for our public car right here, where we have basically the same thing, except the only difference is that we do not have a null for our car next. We'll be setting this to next. For this next one, we can't do the same thing. I copied it in here, and if we were to, we would get an error and it would be a recursive constructor. And that's because this constructor is basically assigning the same thing, and it doesn't seem like we have car next out here, but we actually do. We're just setting car to null, but it realizes it as the same thing. So instead of doing this, we are actually going to have to write out this dot factory, and this is equal to fact, and then we're going to do this dot stop is equal to s, and then this dot material is equal to m, and lastly this dot next is equal to next. And so this is our entire car class completed. Now we are going to move on to the train class.